This episode is sponsored by Realtor.com, who wants you to take advantage of your free profile on Realtor.com. By claiming and completing your free profile, adding a photo, and all of the information that puts you head and shoulders above the competition, you're on your way to receiving free leads, helping search engines find you, and staying top of mind with past clients. To learn more about claiming your free profile, go to Realtor.com/profile. Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison. Joining me today is our special guest, Cheryl Knowlton. She is the CEO of Dynamic Productions Incorporated. She's a national speaker, a real estate educator, broker, coach, author, podcast host, and many-year veteran of the real estate and mortgage industries. She is joining us today to talk about the wonderful world of our code of ethics. Cheryl, welcome on to the show.
Thank you so much, Allison. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you on and be talking to you today, diving into this world of code of ethics. And we're going to be talking about some stuff that's hopefully going to be new and exciting for our listeners to hear about. But before we get started on that, I have to ask our signature question that we ask all of the guests who join me on the podcast, which is, since the show is called The Real View, I would like to know, what is the best view that you've ever seen?
Oh, I love the question. I have two. If we're talking about people, I would definitely have to say 9 years ago today, on this very, very day, I held my oldest granddaughter in my arms for the first time. And that was absolutely epic. Of course, I adore all four of my daughters, and having my children was incredible, but there's nothing like grandparenthood. It is the best club in the entire world. And yeah, shout out to all the grandparents out there who know what I'm talking about.
Very, very awesome. Exciting. And happy birthday to her.
Yay, Casey girl. Yeah, the biggest Harry Potter fan on the planet and could outdo anybody in the trivia department. So she's amazing, and so excited to celebrate her. As far as view, things that I love to see with my eyeballs is fireworks over the Walt Disney World Castle in Orlando, Florida. I have the 750-piece puzzle of that right outside my home office, my home studio door. And it's a great reminder that at 9 o'clock every day, especially for us in real estate, we just get to celebrate the end of a day, no matter how it went, no matter what went right, what went wrong. We just get to celebrate the day and all that was, and get ready for a new day tomorrow. And I love that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that too. There is something just so peaceful and quiet about the ending of a day, and just feeling that sense of accomplishment. And like you said, grateful for whatever the day brought, good or bad, and then getting ready to hit it hard the next day. And I love that. Very cool. Did you get to see any of the fireworks in Orlando when we were down there at NAR convention?
I did not, so that's a great metaphor for this industry, right? I did get to go to Walt Disney World one day while we were in Orlando, and we were booted out early because of the Hurricane Nicole that came in, which prevented some of our friends from all over the country from being able to attend. And that was really, really sad. I'd never experienced a hurricane before. Thankfully, it was a Category 1. Grateful that the damage wasn't more extensive. But yeah, for safety side, they booted everybody. So dang it, there was no fireworks show that night. It had to be metaphoric instead of actual.
No fireworks in the hurricane, which is probably for the best for all of us. I know that was just so crazy. That was so crazy being down there during the hurricane.
It was. And it was interesting to see how the voice of experience, everyone from the airport and NAR and government entities, Disney, came together to make sure that everyone was safe. And I think that that's a beautiful metaphor. When I'm teaching a class, I talk about that there is no magic without safety. And as fun as it would be to have a fireworks show at the end of the day and knowing that they had all these realtor guests potentially, and they always have a lot of magical guests. They always do their best. But yeah, when push comes to shove, they shove everybody out the door, get out of here, go home.
Yep, probably for the best. Hopefully we'll never have to beat a hurricane again. I know that was my first time in a hurricane as well. We don't get too much severe weather here in Ohio, knock on wood. But so that was definitely an experience, and hopefully we never have to go through that again. But happy that we all stayed safe and made it through. So, Cheryl, I want to hear a little bit more about yourself. Tell us about you, how you got started in real estate, what has been your career journey so far, and what's gotten you to this point.
How long have we got? So I'm originally from the California Bay Area. I was adopted at birth, and we'll save that signature story for another time. I lived there till I graduated from high school, came to Provo, Utah to attend Brigham Young University. At that point, it was a miracle that I got in, but I attended BYU for a very, very long time, got married, had 4 beautiful daughters while we were in school, ex-husband, a bachelor's degree, then a master's degree, then a teaching certification. And bless his heart, he had bipolar disorder. And that was a very rocky road for me personally and affected a lot in terms of my personal decisions, which led to my professional decisions. So after being married for 12 years, made the decision, some things had happened that were not good, moved back to California. And it was there that I started in the mortgage industry, working for a company here in Salt Lake City. I've never done anything the normal way. Normal's a setting on the dryer for most of us. That's doubly true for me. So I decided, okay, I had tremendous help and support from a company in Utah, and they said that they would help me and train me in everything I needed to do. And I took a leap of faith, like most of us did. And I said, okay, and then found out about 6 weeks into this brand new career of mine that I was going to need to get a real estate license in order to be able to originate mortgages in California, which I thought was the very stupidest thing in the history of the world. Ultimately, it led to my career, like all of it, which was 3 years in a retail side of lending, meaning working directly with the public, and then 3 years on the wholesale side where I started teaching. By this time, I had moved back to California. I was finally able to create freedom for myself, safety for myself, for my children, said goodbye to my 14 and a half year marriage. And that was one of the bravest, scariest things I've ever done. Met my Prince Charming about 8 months later, got married, and joyfully started on the journey of becoming a blended family, which was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. But he was so supportive and so wonderful. So 3 years in retail lending, 3 years in wholesale lending. Then I decided I wanted to actually get a real estate license in the state of Utah. Did that. And then the day before I was going to be done with my 90 hours of pre-licensing, which was what was required in Utah at that time, it's now 120. I got a phone call from a headhunter inviting me to become a principal lending manager, which is the equivalent of a mortgage broker here in Utah, and become the inside loan officer for a Keller Williams office in Sugar House, Utah, which is just outside of Salt Lake City. And I chickened out, Allison, and I said yes to that. But it taught me so much about the inner workings of an extremely successful real estate office and how all of that worked, which set me up for parallel careers for a little while. And then in 2008, with the mortgage meltdown being what it was, I said, I think I'm ready to retire from lending. Great idea.
Yes.
At that time, focused exclusively on real estate and was mostly in new construction for a while, but I was teaching. And by this time, I started having the opportunity to not teach at local boards alone. I started teaching nationally. That changed everything. And I started teaching designation and certification courses for NAR in 2009. And that changed everything even more. And here we are today. Fast forward to where are we at? I'm a graduate of California public schools and I'm allergic to math. So I started in 1999. We're heading into the anniversary of my 24th year in this industry. And now am a broker here in the state of Utah, real estate broker, have opened an office, recruited 40 agents in a 9-month period of time, which the course of my teaching and the way that I approached the code of ethics, because it was that experience of having been in the industry for many years. I joined my third board, and because I was a brand new member of the board, they didn't have a policy that excluded you if you had been in this industry and were teaching. They had no provision for that. So I walked into the room. It was pretty full, and bless his heart, the nice instructor, very tall gentleman wearing jeans and cowboy boots, which in Park City, Utah was not an inappropriate way to be attired, sat on the table, legs swinging, copy of the code in his hand. I kid you not. And he started at the left-hand side of the room and said, basically, y'all have copy of the code in front of you. We're going to start right there with you. Do you mind starting? And let's start with the preamble. And I thought, please shoot me immediately.
Yeah.
This is a hill I'm prepared to die on. We will not make it out of this room. I'd rather poke myself in the eye with a mechanical pencil than do this. And I thought, gosh, the code of ethics is so important and it's required learning. There's got to be a more fun, engaging way to learn the code so that we can live it better. We can't live it as agents, as brokers, if we don't know it. So why don't we learn it from a practical standpoint? Which set me on a path as I was preparing to submit courses for Triple Play. For those of you who are not familiar with Triple Play, it's the largest continuing education event in the country. It's a tri-state convention, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, 10 to 15,000 agents at the Atlantic City Convention Center every single December. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to write this for them. And thank heaven it was approved and I had the opportunity to teach it. And now I've taught it in many, many states throughout the country, taught it for NAR. And it's just a much more fun way to learn the code so that we can live it. Because frankly, if I'm not having fun, I don't know how much I'm actually learning. And I don't know that I'm going to retain much of anything.
Yeah, no, and that's so true. And that's what I loved about your approach and why I wanted to invite you on is because you do just spice it up a little bit. When we think of like code of ethics, you think, oh my gosh, this is like so dry in a rule book. And I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to have to read this, multi-page document. And how am I even going to get through this? You just bring such a good perspective and spice to the code of ethics, which is why I'm really excited to have you on and be talking about this today. I think we all, as realtors, kind of know what the code of ethics is and why is it so important. But from your perspective, what do you think makes our code of ethics so unique and so important and so just vital to the work that we do every day?
Oh, I'm like, all right, really, seriously, how long do we have? Go back in time to the turn of the last century, early 1900s, the Victorian period, a period of time that I'm fascinated with and absolutely love. There were only 3 professions that even had a code of ethics: doctors, lawyers, and us as real estate professionals. And as I dove into that, like, okay, I get doctors and lawyers and I get why they need a code of ethics. You don't have to reach very far in the podcast world to find stories of doctors, even in today's day and age, who have really violated their Hippocratic oath. Yeah, don't get me talking about
that's a can of worms, right?
But I wondered, why us? Why did we need that? And for those of you who have seen or heard of the play The Music Man, the whole premise of the play is that there was an individual who walked into town and he gets everybody so excited, literally jazzed about buying band uniforms and instruments for a band that doesn't exist. And that's exactly what was happening in real estate. There were shady individuals, men at that time, because women were not allowed to be, minorities were not allowed to be realtors. They couldn't hold a real estate license either. So men, bless their hearts, who were going out and creating fraudulent deeds for folks. And now that I teach and create pre-licensing education, and I've built 2 pre-licensing schools, I get more excited about teaching deeds than I ever did before, because it is so essential that that deed is real. I mean, otherwise it's just Cracker Jack fodder for those of us who are old enough to remember getting the prize out of the Cracker Jack box. And the deed has to be real. And these individuals, these men, created such a bad name for realtors by going out and creating 10 deeds, only one of which was real, and defrauding the public. We think that we don't have the public trust today. Today is a dream come true compared to the way that it was in 1910, 1913. And so a group of brilliant men got together and they said, we've got to do this differently. And that's the whole point behind the code. is the decision to up level, the decision to embrace doing it differently.
Yeah. And it's been kind of our Bible, for lack of a better term. It's what we stand by, what we are committed to. It's what we live every day with. We can't live it till we know it. And as realtors, we all should be living by and abiding by our code of ethics, but we have to really know it before we can truly do that. What is the most important thing that realtors should know about the code of ethics?
That it's not dry, boring ridiculousness, and that it's not a drain on your life to have to take this on a mandatory basis every 2 or 3 years, depending on, people ask me all the time, is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? And I said, take it every 2 years and then you will be ahead of the curve and you'll always be happy and you'll never be in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to pay my dues and they won't let me because I haven't taken the code of ethics. And I personally ran into that this last time. And I had to say, look, I teach this all over the country. If I can submit proof that I teach this everywhere and I taught it 3 times in a 3-day period, how about you let me off the hook this time and I promise I'll take it next time? And they eye rolled me and said, fine. I thought, all right, I promise I said the code a lot, but even I ran into a situation at my last renewal where it was time and somehow I missed all those memos. I don't know if they were sending to an old email address or if it was going into my junk folder. And then we find out, oh no, I have to take this. And that's how we approach the whole thing is, oh no, I have to take this rather than, ooh, what am I going to get so excited about that I'm going to learn today? And how am I going to approach my life, my business, my clients differently as a result of that one juicy nugget that I'm going to take away from learning this? Even if it literally is one thing that you take away from a 3-hour course, if it's a game changer, it's worth it. It's worth it. And so it's how we approach it. If we approach it with enthusiasm and excitement rather than dread, and we're trying desperately to surf our emails and write a contract while we're taking the class. In some of our states, we cannot have electronic devices out on the table during a course. And let's focus. Let's approach it with enthusiasm, like an adventurer, like a prospector. We're digging for gold and see what nuggets that we can learn that we didn't know were there.
Yeah, and they are there. And like you said, all you have to do is find that maybe 2 or 3 things to take away with you. This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org and then click on the pre-license course locations. In your work with studying the code of ethics and becoming an expert on it, was there anything about the code of ethics that surprised you or that you think may surprise other realtors in your time learning and studying it that they may not be aware of right now?
Oh my gosh, again, how much time do we have? There are a few things that continually surprise me, and I'm continually learning. When I was new, I remember being amazed by the beauty and power of the language of the preamble. My broker, after a number of years and after I'd been teaching it, my principal broker of my company said that when he was new, he found the language so beautiful and so powerful that he printed it and he hung it up in his cubicle. Remember those days, kids? That was fun when we had cubicles. And he kept it up there. And then when he became a broker and then principal broker of a very, very large organization, that he framed it, but he kept it up so he could see it every day to allow it to be his North Star, his compass, and how he treated other agents within the office, competing agents, clients. If we allow it to affect and change our behavior, and we really truly understand that under all is the land, and that even in our political decisions, whether it's our HOA, whether it's our city, whether it's our county, our town, our state, we can really make an impactful change right where we live. And we think that the biggest decisions come from Washington, D.C. It's actually the opposite. We can affect more change that's going to affect us and our families and the way that that we buy and sell and live in real estate at the local level and the hyper local level. And the more excited we can get about that, the bigger change we're going to affect in the world.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I love that you mentioned that. We recently did a building renovation here at Ohio Realtors, and on one of our walls in our newly remodeled conference room is the preamble, and it's under all is the land. And you're right, it's beautiful. It really is special. And I don't know what doctors and lawyers and other professions code of ethics look like, but I have to guess that ours is probably right up there as some of the best language in a code of ethics that exists. So love that you mentioned that. I want to kind of talk about agents maybe not knowing the code of ethics so well, and maybe some common mistakes that you see realtors make when it comes to the code of ethics. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So there are only 3 articles that I really want every agent to know. I don't know them all, and I don't expect every agent to know them all, but there are 3 that I really, really want agents to focus on. And if we will focus on these 3, we're going to make it a lot more likely that we're not going to create catastrophic events for ourselves, for our clients, for other agents, and then wind up in front of a grievance or professional standards committee, which we definitely want to avoid. The first of those is Article 1. Article 1 is all about making certain that in everything that we do, which means every social media post, every text, every email, every interaction. Remember those, like actually getting together face to face? That was fun. Always put our clients' needs above our own. And for many, many years, for decades, in fact, most of the issues and challenges and complaints against realtors were over Article 1 because they put their own needs first. And I could give you countless examples of this just to make sure that everybody understands. You take a buyer out, you see an absolutely phenomenal home. You as a real estate professional and realtor recognize that it is wildly underpriced. It's in a fabulous area of town. You and your family would love it. And your buyer starts to be like, wow, we actually really like this house. And you start bad mouthing the house. Well, I don't think this dining room is quite as big as you were hoping for in this yard, and your dog's not going to like it. And you talk them out of it so that you can personally make an offer and then buy the house. That is an example, sadly, and we have hundreds of examples in every state in the union of agents who have done things like that, or they've talked their buyer out of it so that they can sell it for more to a friend or a family member, something like that, that is just skeezy. I don't know if that word is in the dictionary, but we all know what that kind of behavior looks and feels like: slimy, icky, give us a bad name kind of behavior. Even if you have a house payment to make, the holidays are coming, you've got to pay your dues. I don't care what the reason is. You always put your client's needs above your own. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to solve the rest of the issues. The second area is Article 10. And Article 10 is specifically about fair housing. And we think, oh, that was a problem of the 60s. And that is absolutely not accurate. Yes, it was a problem in the 60s, which is what necessitated the passing of the Fair Housing Act in 1968. If you look at that, that was a very politically turbulent time. It was also a fabulous year. It was the year I was born. So
there you go.
There were 3 major assassinations of incredible human beings that year. And there was a tremendous need. And if you go back, there's a great video on YouTube about the history of the Fair Housing Act. And most of you were like, yeah, no, I got episodes of Yellowstone I want to watch. I'm not going to be watching the history of fair housing. It's short and it's powerful. So if you want extra credit points after listening to this, not only watch that, but let me know, let Allison know that you have. Let us know what you thought about it, because we can't change the way we behave unless we change the way we think and the way we feel first. And then that will change our behavior. But just studying fair housing and Article 10, and that is the one that has had the most recent change and update, that especially as it pertains to social media, that we're going to not like or comment inappropriately on anything that is a violation of what Walt Disney called the thumper rule. From Bambi, 1,000 years ago: if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all,
Zip
right?
it.
Zip it, absolutely. And there, I know things happen. Things happened for me and in my professional life last week There were friends in the industry who knew about what happened. And then they were so excited to tell me their story about how much they hated this person and how much this person had no integrity. Oh, we get sucked in. It's human nature. We want to talk about it. The last one that I would really love to encourage agents to focus on is Article 11, which I lovingly and jokingly refer to as the thou shalt not be an idiot section of the code. And that's basically, we don't get up and say, you know what, I'm a little sick of residential after 24 years. I think I'm going to be a commercial agent today. And we waddle into waters where we know nothing, and we are actually going to be a harmful detriment to our client. Talk about Hippocrates, where we don't know what we're doing and we put our client at a severe disadvantage. But that's not just in terms of competency and the area of commercial. That also is geographical competency. I cannot, even though I have a Utah real estate license, I am not going to go down to St. George or up to Park City or any other area that I am not geographically familiar and put someone else at harm. There are two tests for this. Number one is, do you have access to the MLS in that area? If you don't, you as a realtor, you don't have the tools necessary to get the data to be able to do a rockstar CMA and really provide your client with all the data. Number two, do you need a GPS to get there? And I'm not talking about the streets. I've lived in this same town for 19 years. And it's growing so ridiculously fast. There are streets that I don't know where they are, but I know how to get here without a GPS. So just thinking about, and that goes back to Article 1, am I more excited about the commission that I'm going to earn, or am I more excited about serving this client with elevated excellence and true expertise? And none of us were born with expertise. We weren't when we were brand new. Oh, we were so cute when we were new. We didn't have the expertise, and we had to build it over time. Knowledge and experience, lather, rinse, repeat. You can do that for commercial. You can do that for a new geographical area, but it takes time. It takes partnering with somebody who knows exactly what they're doing, and full disclosure potentially to the client, letting them know, hey, I'm not there yet. I've brought in Allison, who's going to help me with this transaction because she's very knowledgeable and has the expertise.
No, those are three great highlights. Definitely important. Star those in your code of ethics and pay super close attention to
1,
those.
10, and 11. In case I hear some of you going, what was that first one? I wasn't listening yet. I wasn't writing it down. 1, 10, and 11.
Yes, thank you. And I love the fair housing stuff too. The staff here took the At Home with Diversity training 2 years ago now, I think. And just, wow. I mean, so eye-opening. You think you could know about it and you're like, oh yeah, I know, I'm good. But I mean, you can't even begin to think about what is still out there for you to learn. And we can always do better. And what better way to do that than to learn all we can about it? So important.
Yes. And huge plug for the At Home with Diversity course for everyone. Even if you've taken it before, in 2020, they updated it and they created a section on unconscious bias. And it blew my mind. And when I very first took that course in 2010, it changed who I am as an agent. It changed who I am as a human being. And then when I got my broker's license in 2014, it changed the way that I approached other agents, other brokers, and then ultimately became a branch broker and took on leadership positions within large organizations. It changes everything because it changes the way you think and the way you feel. And therefore, it changes the way we behave, which is so huge. And so, yeah, At Home with Diversity, it's the one that looks like all-wheel drive, and it's a beautiful, wonderful course.
So Cheryl, I want to end on one final question. How can we as realtors do a better job of learning and following the code? And we've kind of talked about some things, just always trying to gain more knowledge, but what can we do as realtors to learn and follow this code to the best that we really can?
Learn to love it. Someone who was very instrumental in my career early on. I think we all had someone who pointed us in a specific direction. And this particular individual, he was the one who taught me to really love and embrace designations and certifications, which has ultimately changed my life because now I hold 17 NAR designations and certifications, and I teach the vast majority of those. But he taught me something. He said every month he reads 2 things from top to bottom, start to finish, in addition to our state real estate purchase contract. We only have one in the state of Utah. I know many other states have a number of versions. So that is a given. We've got to take care of the contract and make sure that we know that. But he said he reads the US Constitution from top to bottom once a month. Okay, I don't do that once a year.
Right.
And like, wow. And the other thing that he reads from top to bottom every single month is the code of ethics. And I think when we do it because we want to learn it and not because we're being forced to from some regulatory body that's forcing us to sit down and put our bottom and our head in a class for 3 hours and, maybe we're checked out and figuring out what we're going to have for dinner tonight or who's playing in the national championship or, whatever it happens to be. When we do it because we want to and we're excited to learn and how we approach it, it changes everything.
Yeah, so true. And it can be fun, as we mentioned, and as you...
It should be fun.
Yeah.
It has to be fun or we're not going to do it.
Agreed. And you approach it in the right way, and I think it will be life-changing. And thank you so much for sharing all of this world of code of ethics and for making it so fun and enjoyable. And I know I have really enjoyed it, and I hope our listeners have too.
Oh, thank you, Allison, so much for having me on today. And if anyone has any questions about any of this, Allison, you've inspired me. On my own podcast, I don't think I've done any episodes about the code of ethics. So time to step up my own game.
Yeah. And share with everybody listening to how they can listen to your show.
Oh, fabulous. My show is called Magnifying Brilliance. It is specifically geared toward realtors and helping us to up level and next level our businesses by introducing you to friends that you might not otherwise ever hear from. I am currently have the opportunity to serve as the president of the National Speakers Association Mountain West chapter, which is 4 states. And I love the National Speakers Association and have incredible, brilliant friends who shed light on a lot of things that are relevant to us, but do not speak at NAR or any industry conferences. And so just tapping into their brilliance is what it's all about. So it's available on Spotify, Apple, anywhere that you can get podcasts. Magnifying Brilliance. There's a picture of a great big lit up star with me holding a microphone. It's a total mic drop and we have a lot of fun. So I'd love to have y'all listen in and tell me what you think and give me ideas for more folks that I should have on.
Yeah, no, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, make sure you guys tune into that, hear more of Cheryl and her wonderful knowledge that she has to share with our real estate world. So Cheryl, thank you again. This was so fantastic. Thank you for coming on. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. We will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.